she continues, with the volume steadily increasing to a frantic shout at the end, and her usually perfectly milky skin turning pink in fury. Lila, that's enough. First he put his shoes in your shoe cubby. Then he sat in your chair at the table, and now he's eaten your specific Malteser out of the box? I ask, exasperated, trying to make sense of this, as Edward looks on with a tiny furrow in his usually calm brow and a now slightly melty Malteser pincered between his finger and thumb. You don't need to be a child psychologist to see that this outburst isn't about the shoe spot, or the chair, or even the Malteser. It is about the final words my daughter had screamed at my new, and now probably wondering what he was letting himself in for, boyfriend Edward. It is about sharing me, her mummy. They say you've got to pick your battles. I wonder if they have ever been a single mum trying to squeeze a man into the mix without causing World War III over a box of chocolates. Edward must see the cogs turning in my very tired brain as I sit down on the sofa next to him, because he puts his hand on my knee, unfurrows his brow, and gently says, Lila, I know this is your mummy. She's always going to be your mummy. It would be silly if she was my mummy, wouldn't it? She'd have to have grey hair and wear flowery blouses and smell a bit funny like my actual mum does, wouldn't she? This stops Lila in her tracks. She thinks about it for a moment and then, what does your mum smell of? A tiny smile curls at the edges of her little rosebud lips, only detectable to an eye fully trained in all things Lila Blue Wilde. Says Edward. That's a very good question. She always just smells like my mum. But I suppose if you had to narrow it down, I'd say she smells a bit like talcum powder, a bit like custard cream biscuits, and maybe just a tiny bit. And here he pauses for effect, with a big smile and mischievous glinting eyes, which are perhaps a bit contagious. A teeny-weeny bit like a big, long, slimy worm. Despite desperately trying to remain cross with narrowed eyes and lips forced together in a scowl, Lila is failing miserably at maintaining her angry demeanour and giggles at the notion of an old lady smelling like a slimy worm. She'd have to smell a bit like a slimy worm, since I'm a slimy worm, eh? Edward continues, clamping his arms to his sides and slithering about on the sofa as though he really is a worm. Finally giving into the fun, Lila throws herself over me to jump on Edward and tries to pull his hands out from his sides. I was joking. You're not a worm. You're Edward, a man. Help me, he says in high-pitched mock distress. Help me. I'm just a big slimy worm that slimes about, worming my way through all the chocolates. A wiggly, slithery worm. Lila squeals with delight at the new game, entirely forgetting her rage, hitting him with pillows and shouting, I'm going to squish the worm. I rescue the completely mushed chocolate from his hand, eat it, waste not, want not, put the rest of the box on the coffee table and decide I might as well join in. I pelt pillows at Lila and tickle her while Edward fully takes on his slimy worm role and slithers onto the floor, leaving him more exposed to our cushion bombardment. 20 minutes later, with breath back in my body, wow, I'm unfit, and a film on Netflix about a princess who swaps lives with a bakery competition contestant at Christmas, it was Lila's choice to watch a festive film, despite it being the first week in March, and half a box of chocolates now being shared nicely. Normality, whatever that is restored. Phew, that could have gone really wrong. But thankfully, Edward is basically the most perfect man I've ever met. And every time this kind of thing happens, which is a lot, he knows exactly what to say and how to diffuse the situation. I often wonder if perhaps he should actually be a bomb disposal expert, or one of those people who negotiate the hostages out of banks, instead of the high-end furniture buyer that he is. Don't get me wrong, he's very good at spotting the latest trends in interiors, but he's also pretty freaking amazing at managing our funny brand new little family. Ooh, that feels weird, calling it a family. It always used to mean just me and Lila, but then sometimes, especially when I think about what happened last year, I mean all three of us. Or should that be four? My brain and heart feel a bit discombobulated. I've learnt lately that the most effective thing to do is ignore that feeling and move on. Skye, my colleague and former frenemy, would say I need to speak to someone about all this, but I'm just suppressed.